Java 7's new Files API gives you the ability to easily walk a directory tree, starting off at a parent directory and then examining all of its subfolders and subfolders of subfolders and so on, and all of the files within those folders. I'll demonstrate how to do this with the project FileTree, which has a set of files in directories and subdirectories. There's a parent directory called Files, and two subdirectories named dir1 and dir2, and files within each of those. Within my main method, I've defined an instance of path pointing to the files directory. To implement this functionality, you create your own custom class that extends a class called SimpleFileVisitor. I'll go to my FileTree package and create a new class, and I'll name it MyFileVisitor. I'll set the superclass by clicking Browse, and I'll type in SimpleFile, and I'll choose SimpleFileVisitor from java.nio.file. I'll click Finish, and that creates the basic class. Now I'll make one immediate change. The SimpleFileVisitor class has a generic data type. I'll change the generic from T to the path class. I'll type in the name of the class and press Control Space and choose Path from the list, and that adds the import statement. I'll save my changes, and all of my warnings and errors go away. On its own, this is a valid class, but right now it won't implement any of the functionality I need to deal with files and directories. Here's how this system works. SimpleFileVisitor is a superclass. MyFileVisitor is its subclass. The SimpleFileVisitor class has 4 methods that are designed as callback methods. Each of these methods will be called by your application as long as they implement the right interface. So to add these methods, I'll go to the menu and choose Source, Override/Implement Methods, and here they are: Post-Visit Directory, Pre-Visit Directory, Visit File, and Visit File Failed. I'll choose all 4 of these. You don't have to implement all 4. You're not implementing an interface, you're extending a superclass. And if you don't implement any of these, for example, if you don't care about the Pre-Visit Directory method, then the superclass's version would be called instead of yours that doesn't exist. I'm going to implement all 4 of those so we can see all of the syntax. After I click OK, I get the method stubs. And now it's up to me to add custom code. I'll start with Post-Visit Directory. I'll get rid of the to-do comment, and I'll use systemout, and I'll output the string just visited, and I'll append the directory to that. Notice that the directory path is being passed in as an argument to this method. Also notice that this method is marked with throws IO exception, so that if there are any problems accessing the directory, you'll get a valid Java exception that you can deal with. You must return an instance of an enumeration called FileVisitResult. I'll change this return statement, and instead of the existing code, I'll use a constant of FileVisitResult called FileVisitResult.continue. Notice that there are 4 constants available. You can also choose skip siblings, skip subtree, or terminate, and they each do exactly what they say. I'll use continue, and that just means keep on navigating the tree. Now I'll copy that code, and I'll paste it into the pre-visit directory method, and I'll change the label from just visit to about to visit. So pre-visit will be called first, then all of the files within the directory will be processed, and finally at the end, post-visit will be called. Now I'll go down to my visit file method. The visit file method will be called for each file within a directory. And notice that when the method is called, you're getting an argument named attrs that's data typed as something called basic file attributes. You can examine this and find out whether the file is a regular file, a symbolic link, or something else. I'll use if and then attrs.isRegularFile, and notice that there are these 3 other methods: isDirectory, isOther, or isSymbolicLink. And if I get a Boolean true from that, I'll use systemout and I'll output regular file. And instead of println, I'll just use print, because then after that, I'll output the actual file name. And because this is a path object, I can use any of the other methods. I'll just use the file object, and that will print out the actual file name. I'll also change my return statement to return the continue constant from file visit result, just like I did with the other methods. Now I'll implement visit file failed, and again, this would be called whenever a file can't be accessed for any reason. Here, I'll use system.err.println, and I'll output the exception object's getMessage. And again, instead of returning the result of the superclasses method call, I'll instead return continue, and that will cause the tree to continue to be walked. So those are all my changes to the file visitor object. Now I'll go to the main method, and I'm ready to walk my tree. The first step is to create an instance of my file visitor. I'll create a new object data typed as my custom class, and I'll call it visitor, and I'll instantiate it with the class's constructor method. Then I'll call a static method of the files class. This is the first time I've used the files class in this class, so I'll make sure to add an import statement. And then I'll call the method walkFileTree. There are two versions of this. You can either pass in a single instance of file visitor, or you can pass in a set. I'm going to pass in just one. The first argument you pass in is the path that you're going to treat as the parent directory, and I've already defined that. It's named FileDir. And then I'll pass in the visitor object, and the name of that is already set by Eclipse. That's it. I'll save my changes and run the code. And there's the result. Notice the progression. First we get a pre-visit for the files directory, then a pre-visit for the first subdirectory, then the two files, then a post-visit for the first file directory, then a pre-visit, the files, a post-visit again, and at the very end, a post-visit for the top-level directory files. So that's how you walk a directory tree using the new Files API in Java 7. As with all of these tools, this won't be available right away for Android development because Android doesn't implement all the Java 7 APIs. But if you're working in Java 7, this is a great way of working with a directory tree and its contents.